So everybody, we got a brand new BenQ monitor in the studio, which you can see right here, and it has to be probably the best bang for buck monitor that you can get that's specifically made for creators and especially MacBook users. I use this with my 13-inch M2 MacBook Air, which hopefully turns into a 15-inch MacBook Air sooner rather than later. But this is the BenQ Design View PD3205UA 32-inch Ergo Arm 4K monitor. And I know that's a mouthful, but basically it's a 32-inch 4K monitor that comes on a super premium Ergo arm that can be clasped onto any desk. But without further ado, let's talk about what makes this monitor so special. And again, this thing is an absolute beast. Let's get into it. So let's quickly talk about the actual specs of the display because it's important to know exactly what you're getting in terms of bang for your buck. So this is a 32-inch or 31.5 if you're being absolutely exact inch monitor, and is an IPS panel. It is a 3840 by 2160, so a true 4K monitor, and you can definitely tell with how crisp this thing is. Some of the things to take note of is that it does have a peak brightness of 350 nits. It does support HDR10, has a 1000:1 native contrast ratio, has some great viewing angles of basically 180 degrees, so no matter how far off to the right or left you're looking at this monitor, you're not going to see any dip in color, any weird saturation. You're going to be able to see the entire thing in its entirety. Now again, this is made for the creator in mind, for the MacBook user. This is not a gaming monitor, so it is stuck at 60 Hz. If you do want a gaming monitor with 120 or 144 Hz or more, I will leave some link down in the description below for you guys to check out, but this one is for the creator in mind, and it still works for casual gaming. Like I play a little bit of NBA 2K, a little bit of Marvel Strike Force. I even play some Retro Ball on here on my iPad, which is great to see. So being able to use a monitor for some casual gaming is more than enough. And then lastly, you are getting a 140 ppi on this 4K 32-inch monitor, which is absolutely amazing. With that anti-glare coating is absolutely outstanding because you're able to see all the correct colors. Even when I have this big window open from behind me, it doesn't really get in the way. It doesn't give me too much reflection when actually using the computer, so I absolutely love the anti-glare coating. It does give you this feeling that maybe the brightness isn't super duper high, but that goes away pretty quickly and you get used to it right away, and it is plenty bright enough even when you are in the middle of the day with windows that are as big as these, kind of shining as much light throughout the middle of the day. You can see everything perfectly fine. So now let's talk about the actual screen and what makes it actually built for creators. So you are getting pretty much 99% of the sRGB color palette, as well as the 99% of the REC709 color spaces. So basically what that means in a nutshell is that it's going to be very color accurate to the MacBook that you're using. Again, this can be used with any computer whatsoever, but they do put a big emphasis on the compatibility on the Mac side. So if you're using an M1 MacBook Air, M2 MacBook Air, any of the MacBook Pros with the mini LED display, now it is more comparable to the display that you get from the M2 MacBook Air versus that mini LED on, let's say, one of the MacBook Pros, but it's still very color accurate. The 4K display and the brightness really make sure that you get the exact colors that you want out of your MacBook as an extended display, because I know if you guys have used maybe cheaper monitors in the past and you plug in a very premium laptop like the MacBook Pro, the M1 Max MacBook Pro, and you plug it into another monitor, once you get to the nitty gritty and getting some actual video editing done or some photo editing done, you can't really trust the actual colors on the monitor. But with this one, you can absolutely trust it, and there's even an MBook mode, which they're calling their MacBook mode, which I'll show in a little bit, that really kind of brings all the colors together, the brightness together, the saturation together, the way that Apple intended it to, which I love to see. And now in terms of connectivity on the rear, you get a bunch of I/O, pretty much anything that you would ever need when connecting to an actual MacBook. Now keep in mind, with the M1 and the M2 MacBook Air, by default, from Apple, those chips can only support up to one external monitor. So if you're using it with your M2 MacBook Air like I am, unfortunately, unless you have a dock that has DisplayLink built into it, which is still not even super steady and I wouldn't recommend it, you're not able to have a secondary or a third monitor. Versus with the M1 Max and the M1 Pro MacBook Pros, you are able to daisy chain these monitors all together. But to give you an idea of the type of I/O that you get a full HDMI port, a full display port, you get one full USB-C, which gives you up to 90 watts of power delivery and data. You get two USB Type-B upstream ports, you get another USB Type-C downstream port, 3 USB 3.2 downstream ports, and then the all-in-one connection USB-C port. So you have a multitude of I/O. Again, this is a single cable solution for me personally. So the monitor is plugged into power, and then I have a Thunderbolt 3 cable going from the actual backside over to the actual MacBook Air, and that is what's going to charge and make sure that I have power on the MacBook. It also supplies all the audio and video output directly from the MacBook Air over to the display itself. And I'm a big believer in a single cable solution. One thing that I will say is that the Thunderbolt cable is relatively short. I believe it's only 1.5 feet long, so if you need a 3-foot cable, you might have to look elsewhere with the cable that it came in the box itself, but it is a very tried and true and very capable cable. Like the cable I had before, my last monitor was a little bit finicky. It kind of broke whenever I went into clamshell mode, but this is a true Thunderbolt cable that you can trust with pretty much all of your Thunderbolt needs. And then another thing that I really like about this monitor, or at least one of the accessories that it comes with, is the actual puck G2. So this hotkey puck is exactly what it sounds like. Normally, when you have to deal with the settings or the actual built-in settings of the monitor, you gotta like click around, kind of blindly look behind the actual monitor itself, see if it's exactly where you want to go in the settings menu, if you're pressing the right buttons, if you're pressing OK, if you're pressing up and down correctly. But the actual G2 hotkey puck pretty much solves that entire issue, and it looks good, it looks aesthetic, and it's basically just a controller to actually control all the different settings inside of your BenQ monitor. Now again, in the settings menu, there's a bunch of different settings on how you want to actually color correct and make sure you have the correct color gamut when displaying on this external monitor. Again, I deal with the MBook mode because it's the most true one-to-one when it comes to my MacBook Air display to the actual display on this monitor, but you have an abundance of other ones if you do want to play with those as well. And then another nice feature with this monitor is that it has a built-in KVM switch, which is something that's very rare in a monitor at this price point. The KVM switch is actually used to be able to use this single monitor with two different computers, or two different ways to actually output video and audio. So for instance, let's say you have an Xbox that you want to have directly plugged in at all times, but then you also have your MacBook directly plugged in. The KVM switch allows you to just quickly switch with the hotkey puck, which is great to have, between your Xbox and your MacBook. But same thing goes with two computers. Let's say you have a Windows desktop kind of tower on the left-hand side that you use for maybe Windows tasks, but then you have your MacBook for creative tasks. Then you can easily switch between those two without having to unplug, replug, move HDMI cables, without having to power up anything else. You literally just do a little switch on the actual hotkey puck, and then you're good to go. So that KVM switch is very, very important to people that use two different operating systems or two different video outs, essentially. And then finally, let's talk about the design and the fact that what makes this one of the newer actual monitors is that Ergo arm. So this is the first time that I've personally used an Ergo arm to mount any type of display. Usually with the monitors that I use whatever stand that comes kind of pre-installed in the box, and then I just use that and live with whatever that actually entails. But this Ergo arm has really changed how I cable organize everything, how much actual desktop space I have when actually using the computer, because with a normal computer or a normal monitor, that actual monitor stand is going to take up space on your desk itself, but with the Ergo arm, all of that changes. Now I am using an autonomous desk, it's about an inch thick, and I've had zero issues with the Ergo arm, and I didn't even put the Ergo arm all the way in because I wanted to save even more space, so I actually have some room to work with on the desk itself. This desk is about 29 inches in terms of depth, so I get about 29 inches of depth, and it only takes up about 2 inches in the rear if you guys really look at it. It's very easy to install. It is a little bit heavy, so if you can't pick it up, you might need a second person, but for the most part, I was able to install it fully by myself. You just actually tighten up the Ergo arm and then clip on the actual monitor itself, and then you have full range of motion. So you're able to pull this all the way out, push it all the way in if you need to, angle it up and down if you need to, angle it on the y-axis, on the x-axis, and even a little bit of the z-axis as well. So you have full range of motion with this monitor. Whatever position you need to put it in, it's very easy to move. And for a monitor that's on the heavier side, this actual Ergo arm is designed so well that it moves super seamlessly. It's easy to move around, but not so easy that you're kind of like knocking it out of the way. So keep that in mind. This is the Ergo arm version, so this does not come with a stand. This comes with the arm that you need to actually mount on a desk itself. Very easy to mount, very self-explanatory, and once you get it all set up and cable organized through the actual Ergo arm, it works extremely well. And that is pretty much everything we have, or everything we need to know about this BenQ monitor. All you really need to know is that it's tailor-made and built for MacBook users, whether it is an entry-level MacBook Air or a fully loaded M1 Pro or M1 Max MacBook Pro. You can use it with your Mac Studio. You can still use it with a Mac Pro if you're still using a Mac Pro. So it's built to be used with Macs, but it can be used with anything else as well. So it's not just dedicated for Macs. It just has a couple of extra settings to really conform to a Mac user from a design and creative standpoint. The Ergo arm is very easy to use. I love just how fluid it is. The display is very crisp. The 4K actual resolution has made it very, very easy for me to be able to use multiple apps at once at all times. And it's handled everything that I need to. Oh, and it does have a built-in speaker. Now the built-in speaker isn't anything crazy. It is pretty tinny, doesn't have too much bass, but if you just need it for emergency audio, or maybe you're listening to a podcast, it's gonna get the job done. And what I like about this is the actual price. So for $750, you get pretty much all the way up to that studio display type of kind of quality. I mean, the studio display, I believe, is 5K, this is 4K, but overall, from a quality standpoint, you're saving what, $800, maybe $900 to go with this one. You can get yourself 2 of these monitors for the price of 1 studio display and just be able to have as much as you want in terms of screen real estate versus the studio display. Yes, it is a 5K monitor, but at the end of the day, Not a lot of people need that 5K monitor. The 4K is more than enough because I edit everything in 4K. I'm not using any 8K or even 5K footage for that matter. But that is going to do for this video. If you guys do want to check it out, I'm going to link it down in the description below. I just think it's a great alternative to what else is out there. The Ergo arm is very, very premium. The actual display itself gets the job done. It works well with MacBook users and MacBook Pro users. There's really nothing negative to say about this thing. And for $750, it's hard to go wrong, everybody. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys did enjoy, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below so that I know you made it to the end. And if you guys want to watch some more iOS, iPadOS, or macOS videos, click on one of these right here. But until next time, I'm Fernando. I'm out of here, everybody. Peace.